Hello everyone, welcome to another Voice Essentials live hangout. It's so good to have already so many of you jumping in on the live chat, and welcome to those of you who are new. I see Sean O'Donnell, he's been chatting a little bit on some of the videos just recently, and so it's been good to chat with him. Sean, it's your first time here, welcome to you. And if you're also already jumping into the chat, it's good to have you come along. Thank you for joining us. And if you're watching this as a not live, but you're watching it after we've posted it, and it's just in the general mishmash of what is YouTube, then welcome. I'm hoping that we'll cover a lot of really valuable material today. We are specifically looking at the concept, the technique of twang today. If you haven't watched any of my Voice Essentials live hangouts before, then you wouldn't know that a lot of people that join me here on the live hangouts have been asking for weeks for me to talk about this subject. And so today we are going to tackle the subject and hopefully unearth some myths around it and really help you to unpack the full value of what twang is. And we're going to go through a couple of exercises. I want it to be really practical, and of course, as always, we will finish off at the end with our usual Q&A. So I'm hoping you can stick around throughout the live show, and if you've got a question, make sure you leave the question in the live chat if you're watching live, and if of course you're watching after the live event, then don't hesitate to leave your comment in the comment sections below, because as all of my subscribers know, I do my very best to respond to every comment. But without further ado, let's get into the entire show.
Sound check. Check 1, check 2.
Now, it is raining a bucket load here today, so hopefully the rain doesn't drown us out. I have a tin roof over the studio, so unfortunately if it does really get too heavy, then you'll have to let me know in the comment sections below if for whatever reason you can't continue to hear me, but hopefully it will be fine. So as a result, the weather here in Vegas is not crash hot today, it must be said. In fact, it's a little bit on the cool side, and maybe later I've got my camera set up. Normally, for those of you who watch these shows on a regular basis, I often show you a picture of outside and show you the picturesque day. I would like to do that, but I've got my camera set up for something else that we're going to be doing today, so I can't show you. Maybe at the end of the show I can show you just how miserable it is outside. We are currently receiving what they estimate to be in vicinity of our month's rainfall in 1 or 2 days. So that sort of tells you how bad it is. Be sure to let us know where you are from and what the weather is like in your part of the world. Tell us what time it is. Here in Brisbane, Australia, it is the 13th of June, so we're already in Tuesday, well into Tuesday. In fact, it's 10 to 2 in the afternoon, and like I do at least once a week here, I've had a cancellation today, so I've been able to jump in and spend this live hangout with you, and I hope you're all not only in good voice but in good spirit and ready to learn. So today we are talking about twang. Now, I want to ask you this question, and you can jump in and leave your comments in the notes sections. Let's go across there, because I want to encourage you. Let me know when you hear the word twang, what immediately springs to mind. What is it that you immediately associate with twang? Because often it's interesting the amount of people that would often associate it with. Often it's associated with, some people think of guitar string, twang. Some people think of what are some other people will often associate it with country and western music, sort of that Tammy Wynette, D-I-V-O-R-C, I left my man today, and it sort of has that, sort of high-pitched sort of nasality to it. And here's the deal. twang is not nasality. And I know that you may have come across other suggestions here on YouTube. We are going to look at it anatomically today. I'm going to show you and walk you through how it is not nasality, and we're going to unpack that for you today so that you really get a full understanding of what twang is. And and Kathleen's jumped in. Nice to see you again, Kathleen. And so let's reframe this thing called twang. Let's reload it. And I always reload it by redefining it. I always define twang as a clear, focused resonance. A clear, focused resonance. It is a resonant value within your voice. And it's something that we as contemporary singers use, and use it to great effect. And we'll talk about the values of it in a moment. But before we do, let's just recognize where we kind of get the word twang from. It was originally coined, certainly brought into the mainstream pedagogical language by a lady by the name of Joe Still, one of the 20th century's most well-known vocal pedagogues. She was a classical pedagogue who created her a range of things called her vocal figures, and I'm not an Still qualified practitioner, but certainly some of my work has been influenced by hers, because she gave us a really great language to converse between speech therapists and singing teachers. And so anyway, one of those things that came about from Joe Still was this word twang. And so what we're going to do is we're going to really unpack what that is today. But to do that, I'm just jumping over here. Don't forget also, it's good to see these discussions moving along. Let me jump over here. Axl Rose sings with twang. At times he certainly does. Don't forget to leave your questions in the comment sections in the live chat, guys, because I will answer 2 or 3 of your questions later in the show, as we always do. But for now, let me take you across to this video so that we can start talking a little bit about anatomically what this thing called twang is. So we know that sound travels along this pathway. Yeah, it comes up through the larynx. It's formed at the level of the vocal folds. It then continues up through the laryngopharynx into the pharynx, and then a decision is made dependent on what shapes and sounds you are making. It either travels through the mouth or it travels through the nose, and often it's a combination of both. Now I just said, twang is not nasality. Yeah? Any sound that travels through your nasal cavity is nasalized. That bit's not rocket science. But we just said twang is not nasality. And the reason for that is, in fact, the resonance, the frequency development of twang actually occurs right in that spot there, in what's referred to as the laryngopharynx. Yeah? So if twang is added into the voice at that point, yeah, it's kind of like a post-mix. If it's added into the voice immediately after the vocal folds have created the twang, then it's being added before the choice is made as to whether the sound travels through the nasal cavity or through the mouth. Hopefully you can all see that nice and clearly on the screen. Now, in the case of an exercise we're about to do, we're going to use NG, sing. This is track, from memory, track 4. Sorry, it'll be track 5, exercise 4 on my exercise CD, for those of you who already own it. For those of you who don't, there's a link in the description sections below if you want to go and check it out and download your own copy. The exercise, track 5, track 5, exercise 4, sing. we're using an NG to activate the twang. It's the first twang exercise on the CD. Now, when we do that, we actually lift the back of the tongue up against the soft palate. And so in this particular instance, we've got all of the twang, all of the sound traveling through the nasal cavity. Now, the reason we use NG, sing, is because we want to activate a thing called, well, we'll get to what it's called in a second. Let me just come back over to a different camera and I'll introduce you. Many of you have met Lenny before. So this is Lenny. Lenny is a 2.5 times to scale adult male larynx. And this is the front of Lenny. So this would be sitting in my neck, 2.5 times to scale, obviously, sitting in my neck. So looking at Lenny from behind, you can see that you've got the hyoid bone, not to be mistaken with the jaw, which on Lenny would sit up here. And then we've got this guy here. This is a leaf-shaped cartilage called your epiglottis. Now, your epiglottis, when you swallow food or fluid, your epiglottis comes down and closes off the airway and directs food and fluid down in behind the trachea into your esophagus, down into your stomach. When you are creating when you are breathing, just like you are right now, hopefully you are, because if you're not, you're dead. If you are, then your epiglottis is sitting open and allowing air to travel in and out of the trachea. And it does that not only while you're breathing, but also when you're creating sound for speech and singing. And so the interesting thing, it has another particular interesting job. Let me take us back over to the other screen. The other interesting thing it has is the ability to do this. Can you see that that's the same picture here? Okay? And I'm just conscious of the fact that we may even already have Linda and Shane on in our live view, and who are both private students of mine. Shane and Linda, this will be revision for you because this is the second lesson I teach nearly every new student. And so I am giving away a bit of a freebie today. So for you guys, you're going to get this twice, which is great for revision. So as I said, you've got this same picture here, right? We're looking at the back of the larynx. Sitting around the edge of the epiglottis is a muscle called the aryepiglottic sphincter. Yeah? Try saying that quickly 3 times. Aryepiglottic sphincter. Now, let me give you a layman's term. We actually, these days, most vocal pedagogues just refer to that as the twanger. Now, the reason we call it the twanger is because it has an interesting ability. We talked about the epiglottis being open and being closed. When we activate the twanger, the aryepiglottic sphincter, we bring the epiglottis into a halfway position, which in turn creates this space called the laryngopharynx. And as I said before, it's in the laryngopharynx that the clear, focused resonance of twang is added into your sound. And it's that narrowing of that space, that halfway closure, that narrowing, which creates the resonance space, the shape that activates the clear, focused resonance of twang. And so hopefully that really does show you just, how if it's happening here, it can't, the decision is made before it goes up. Now, so you might be forgiven for thinking to yourself, okay, well, we're doing sing, so that's all going through my nasal cavity. And NGs, all NGs are created with a nasalized sound. And the reason we use NG, and we're going to do a couple of exercises in a moment together, the reason we use NG is because we know from research that NG activates the twanger. It causes the epiglottis to come into that halfway closure. And so we get the full benefit of the twang activating. And it's normally at this point that I'd ask a student whether they have any questions. So if you've got any questions, don't forget to leave them in the comments section, and we'll continue with that. Let me jump back over to a different camera. So let me explain to you what is, therefore, the benefit of twang to a contemporary singer. Well, let's just say I wanted to hose my pathway off. I've got a pathway that runs out the front of the studio. And let's just say I wanted to hose it off with a big wide open spray. That's not going to be very effective. I'm going to get everything wet. Not that today I need to wet anything. Everything's already wet. That's already going to be, you know, get everything wet, but it's not going to get the job done that I've set out to do. It's not going to do it efficiently. And so what I've got to do is twist the nozzle on the end of the hose, bring the existing spray into a focus stream, and hey presto, you're getting the job done far more efficiently. That's exactly what twang is doing to your sound. Twang focuses your sound. Now, the benefit is so high, so big, that research has shown that singers who use twang get up to 600% more volume. Massive payoff. Now, here's the thing. We as contemporary singers, we use microphones. We don't need 600% more volume. 600% equals 18 dB. That's big volume. So let's just say we're happy to settle for half that, yeah? 300%, because we don't need the 600, so let's go for 300. Well, on a scale of efficiency, that means we can reduce our effort, and therein lies the big benefit of twang. Yes, twang does give us a clear, focused resonance, but most importantly, it creates efficiency. Now, the big efficiency of twang is in fact how little air it uses. It uses a reduced amount of air. And in fact, during the early 2000s, twang kind of fell out of favor a little amongst vocal pedagogues, because what was actually happening, a lot of vocal pedagogues had not adjusted for the twang position, had not adjusted and reduced and intentionally got their students to reduce air pressure. If you have too much air pressure behind the NG, sing, it'll want to lock up. It causes you to really back off the air pressure. Here in Australia, we have a little saying, this, you know, if something runs on the smell of an oily rag, that means it's running on fumes. It needs very little energy to keep it going. And that's exactly what twang does. It runs on the smell of an oily rag. It uses reduced air pressure. And in doing so, it creates this really high level of efficiency. So what I want to do is I want to go around to this here, and hopefully you can all hear that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an exercise. This would be the exercise that we would use on the CD, track 5, exercise 4. And so the exercise goes like this. Sing. Now I'm starting down on C3 in this particular instance. And ladies, you would, typically I would start ladies up here. Sing. Yeah? Now, as I'm doing it, I'm conscious. I'm not driving the tongue up. I'm just sing, sing. You can hear I'm not allowing it to go sing, yeah, and pushing. Sing, 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 sing. Sing. Now again, this is a nasalized twang. The rear of the tongue is coming up to the soft palate. It's closing the mouth off. There's no sound that can come through my mouth, so all of the sound is going through the nasal cavity. But of course, the value of twang is not found only in nasality. In fact, the big benefit of twang over nasality is that nasality is a fixed position. Yeah, you've got these two very narrow holes, for the want of a better, narrow cavities that you have really virtually no control over shaping. They're narrow and they're always going to be bright, they're always going to be pingy, and those sorts of things. With twang, however, we can learn to take the twang, the clear, focused resonance of twang, through our mouth. Have a listen. This would be the next exercise, exercise 6, track 7 on the CD. I'm doing all this from memory. And have a listen to what I'm going to do. Is the exercise would sound like this. Sing, ang, ing, ang, ong, ing. If you can hear a bit of a shake in my voice today, it's because for lunch last night I made the most amazing fettuccine with a cream garlic sauce with a white wine. Oh, it was, I'm telling you, I had that for lunch because we had some leftovers. And those of you who know, I struggle with reflux. My reflux is really playing up, so if you hear a tentativeness in my voice, I have tried to take something for it, but we'll see how we go. So it was worth it, I assure you. The fettuccine was delicious. So am I oversharing? I don't know. So what we want to do is have a listen to it again. I'm going to break that exercise into bite-sized pieces. And I want you to have a listen to how I create the NG, and then I'm going to open it onto the vowel. But the NG that has activated the twanger and therefore invoked the clear, focused resonance of the twang, I want you to have a listen for how that clear, focused resonance then remains through the core of the vowel, which is actually running through my mouth, not through my nasal cavity. Have a listen. Sing, ah. Have a listen again, and I'll pinch my nose just to prove the point. Sing, ah. It's not through my nasal cavity, it's through my mouth. And therein lies, we're going to go through the others in a moment, therein lies the massive benefit of twang, is that you can shape twang. Twang can travel through a vocal tract that can be enhanced with depth of tone whilst you maintain a clear, focused core to your sound, and you do it in an efficient manner. This is the reason why twang is the second lesson that I teach my students, because of the value is so high to the contemporary singer, especially those of you who are working regularly and doing, 3 or 4 sets a night, 4 or 5 nights a week. Efficiency is such a big ticket item that twang is so helpful in. So have a listen to the other shapes, the other vowel shapes. I'll go through them beginning to end. Sing, ah, sing, a, sing, e. Now with E and I, I've got to work harder at reducing the pressure even more so, because the shape is even more narrow over E and I, and so I've got to be conscious of keeping that already reduced air pressure even less. Sing, e, sing, I. You can hear there's a depth of tone in that I, certainly acoustically in here. Hopefully it's coming across on camera for you. Now with O and U, you know the bell of a trumpet, how it splays out? We're going to do that with our lips. Sing, oh, sing, yeah, have a listen to when I don't shape the lips. Sing, I don't quite get the sing, and it really shapes that vowel nicely. Some YouTubers have advocated for rounded forward lips like that across all vowels. I'm not that keen to do that, but certainly with O and U, you'll find it really helpful. And so on this exercise, I always instruct a more active protruded lip. And so you go through them in your homework. You can go through them individually like I just did, And then you can put them into a sentence. And for guys, I'm just using an F below middle C, F3. And ladies, you would be up on C4. So I'll do it up on the C4, see how my voice goes today. Up on the C4 for girls as the extended phrase, which again, there's a track on the CD that you can use. So it would sound like this. Sing, ang, neng, ning, ang, ong, ning. And then we go up. Sing, ang, neng, ning, ang, ong, ning. So all I'm doing there is I'm shaping the NG, dropping to the vowel, shaping, dropping, shaping, dropping. And so you're constantly working for the vowel. In the exercise, make sure you always go back to the NG. Activate the NG, but constantly manage your sense of air pressure. Don't let everything, constantly want to sing, and, just get all lazy on you. Keep it energized. Guys, it would be down here. Sing, ang, ing, ing, ang, ong, ing. Sing, ang, ing, ing, ang, ong, ing. Sing, ang, ing, ing, ang. Let me show you standing up how I would do this exercise, because I do a little bit of a movement with my students. And in fact, Shane, if you're still with us, mate, we talked about this in our lesson earlier today. So it goes like this. Sing, ang, ing, ing, ang, ong, ing. Again, what we're doing is we're activating the entire body so that we're creating support here and reducing, structural stiffness through our shoulders and our neck. So there you go. As promised, we talked about twang. I'm sure you've got some questions that I'm looking forward to answering. So if you haven't already, type your questions into the chat section. I'm going to come back over to this screen back over here, and hopefully we can start answering your questions. And we've had heaps. Wowzers. Such an active bunch. It's so good to work with you guys. And Sean, I think I've answered that question. Is there a difference between nasal resonance and nasality? No, nasal, I didn't answer that. Nasality is simply nasal resonance. I don't think we'd separate the two. Any sound that travels through your nasal cavity is nasalized. And so let's not forget that sounds such as M, N, NG, are all nasalized. You cannot get away from nasality, certainly in the English language, and I dare say in most languages across the world. They would have nasalized consonants and sounds and vowels. So you have to certainly be comfortable with that. Oh, Linda's jumped in. Good to see you, Linda. That would have been, for those of you, for Linda, if you didn't catch me earlier saying, that will have been a revision for you, which is, I hope you enjoyed. So jumping down here. Yes. This question here. I can't seem to get twang because I suffer from MTD. For those of you who don't know what MTD is, muscle tension dysphonia. I tried doing neck stretches, but it's not going away. What should I do? I do have an exercise, a video on, well, it's not really specifically on muscle tension dysphonia, but because I'm looking at your name going Farimachi. I'm not going to be able to just, to say that, am I? There is a video that you can go looking for about muscular tension on my channel that speaks kind of to muscle tension dysphonia. The challenge with muscle tension dysphonia is everyone's voice triggers differently, and so really the best care that you could possibly have, always remember that what we do here on the channel and on anyone's channel, despite what they might say to you, is general. It's generalized. And so especially when we get into more complex issues like MTD, muscle tension dysphonia, I cannot stress enough how important it is for you to seek personalized care. And so certainly, you know, one-on-one I'd be able to do work with you, but certainly not be beyond me being able to, you know, the reason twang is going to be setting the MTD off will be almost certain because you're using too much air pressure. And so learning to get less pressure, but it also depends on whether your MTD is hyper or hypo. So it comes down to whatever is going on there. I can't really answer it any more specifically than that. Because of Jill down here, because of throat trouble from mucus left over from a bronchial condition I had a few months ago, I've been singing more through my nose to keep from straining my voice during our last few concerts. Okay, interesting. If you've got leftover mucus, I take it you're referring to leftover mucus in your lungs. I don't know how much more beneficial you're going to be getting from singing through the nasal cavity. It sounds to me, ultimately, I think what you're aiming at there, Julie, is actually what we talked about today, is the efficiency that twang would give you. But the benefit of twang is going to be that you get far more depth of tone. You're able to mold it, and so I would encourage you towards the values of twang over nasality, and that way you're not always going to be, you know, accused of sounding like I said, Tammy Wynette. Mind you, if you're a country and western singer where that value is, you know, that sound is valued, then great. But for many contemporary genres, it's not always a good thing. Area epiglottic sphincter, Linda, much easier to remember twang. It is much easier to remember twanger. Okay, coming down here. So many good questions. Karina Chen. Hey, Karina, I live in Karina Heights. Isn't that cool? It's, you know, to point it out, it's pretty daggy, but nonetheless, welcome to the channel. You live in Hong Kong, which is great. I have an online student who's in Hong Kong. I have a breathy voice and poor cord closure due to the removal of cardioid body tissue tumour. Can you give me some advice to deal with this? Ooh. So we would go looking to cause an activation of vocal fold closure. NG, doing these twang exercises they're not going to be the silver bullet, Karina, but they will be helpful. Because the other thing about twang, which I didn't mention before, is not only do you get, oh, where am I? Let me go back to a full screen so I'm not trying to fill around here. Not only do you get that closure, yeah, it also, if we think about the vocal folds as being there, it also causes, by shape, it causes a full closure of the vocal folds. And so NG is another activity. I don't just use it for twang, I also use the twang for vocal health, because it does encourage a better, what's referred to as a complete adduction of the vocal folds, a better closure. And so certainly that would be helpful to you, Karina. It's certainly not going to be the whole picture, and again, I would be encouraging you first and foremost, I would dare say you've already done it, but if you haven't, to be working with a speech therapist who in turn then would step you on to, once you've learnt to walk again with your voice, then you would learn to run again with someone like myself, a singing voice specialist, especially after a significant piece of vocal fold surgery such as that. Is twang helpful for vocal stamina? Gavin asks, yes, because it's efficient. And when you are singing efficiently, then you are able to be far more sustained in your voice. You're paying less and you're getting more. And so it means that you can work your vocal budgets in a much more sustainable way. And the benefits are so high to your stamina, Gavin. How is twang different from pharyngeal voice? Pharyngeal voice happens in the pharynx. Yeah, and so twang ultimately is traveling through the pharynx, and dependent on what you're doing, remembering twang is happening down immediately above the vocal folds. It's being added in immediately above the vocal folds, not after that. And so when the twang enters the pharynx, dependent on what you are doing with your pharynx and the pharyngeal wall and the pharyngeal constrictors and all of those sorts of things, depending on what you're doing with those, will then determine what sounds you are then creating. We're going to jump down because we are going to finish up soon. We've already been going for 40 minutes, and we do try to keep these short and sweet. Hey, by the way, if you've enjoyed today's video, because I know many of you were wanting me to talk about twang in depth, and hopefully I've gone through it in enough depth for you, please hit the thumbs up button. Share the video with your friends and those of people who sing, because it really helps to build our community, which is verging on, what are we up to? We're nearly at 16,000, everyone, which is really exciting. So I'm going to come down here. Dana, twang isn't happening for me. I have yet to experience that increase in volume that twang promises. What could be missing? You know, Dana, when I've worked with students, and that's a very specific question to you, and it can be frustrating for those of us who don't naturally have a lot of twang. So, for example, a lot of Southern Americans have a lot of natural twang. It's built into their accent. I have a lot of, for that I've shared with many of you before, my nickname at high school was Squeak, because I had this hyperactive twanger. And I have had to learn to remove twang from my voice so that it's not as cutting. And so in your case, learning to activate it is a challenge, and I hear that. And for those people who do struggle with it, more often than not, not always, more often than not, it is again too much air pressure. And so getting that muscle to work but not under high, heavy air pressure load is a big challenge. So hopefully you can play around with that. But aside from me actually hearing you directly, I don't know that I'd be able to help you. Dana, if you get the chance, download the exercise CD if you haven't already. Try the 2 exercises that are on there, exercise 4 and 5. And see how you go with those, and work with those for a couple of months, and see if that helps to activate. I know a lot of people, certainly here on YouTube, will try to activate twang with a meow and those sorts of things. For me, when I do a me, it actually creates tension. I feel a lot of tightness. So I tend to, for the most part, steer away from the meow. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm just saying I tend not to use it. You might like to experiment with it yourself. Meow. I always just feel really tight, whereas sing, it feels a little bit more open for me. And so anyway, I hope that's helpful to you. We're going to come down. Kathleen, Lois has asked, can you use twang when belting? Lois, I would encourage you to go and watch my belt video on the channel, where I actually identify that twang is the key ingredient to belt. Yeah? If you are belting without twang, then you are in a pretty dangerous place technically. And so belt, the way I teach belt and train singers in belt is to activate belt with a core aspect of twang. And Shane earlier, I had a lesson with Shane earlier from the US earlier today, and we were talking about belt, and we identified that very thing. I'm going to give one more question, then we're going to finish up for today. For those of you who don't have not joined us before, we do these generally Mondays or Tuesdays, generally in the afternoon, but it depends on when I have a free time come available in the studio. I am a working singing teacher, and so I'm generally putting these live hangouts into a cancelled lesson, and so we would love for you to join us for these live hangouts. And the only way to be notified about these when I go live is to subscribe to the channel, Voice Essentials channel, and then hit the bell icon, and that's the only way that you can be notified by YouTube that I'm going live. I don't typically, send out mass emails about that. And of course, I also have a pre-record video that goes live that's not a live event, it's just, it gets published on Thursdays at 5 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, and we would love for you to check it out. And of course, there's nearly 250 videos on the channel now that just cover such a big range of topics around good singing. So if you're new, we would love for you to join our ever-growing community of singers from across the globe. And we hope that you'll join us. So let's just jump in here. We've got one more question. We're going to give one more question. Jill has already purchased the exercise, which is great. Thank you, Jill. That helps support the channel too, which is terrific. Cockney squeak on account of having a high-pitched voice. Well, it was high school, Gavin and Cockney, and I'm okay. It's all good. Emotionally, I'm in a pretty good place. Okay. Oh, I'm going to give this one to the last one to Kev Tran, one of our regulars. Can you demonstrate how twang can be used in a song? Yeah, so let's say if I sing a song, Chasing Cars by Snow Patrol. We'll do it all, everything on our own. Now, I'm intentionally trying to keep that really broad, which, to be honest with you, would be more appropriate than this. We'll do it all, everything on our own. If I lay here, it's not really appropriate to the song. If I lay here, you can hear me actually shaving the the twang out of it. Now, the efficiency comes where I'm actually keeping a small slither of twang. Have a listen, just through the core of the tone. If I lay here, if I just lay here, would you lie with me and just forget the world? We'll do it all, everything on our own. Yeah, can you hear the difference? So it's and so I'm turning it on, turning it off, and that takes some work. And you can hear, because of the agitation that I mentioned earlier from my reflux, I'm just getting a little bit of a constricted point there. But nonetheless, hopefully that helps. There we go, another live event hangout. I hope you guys have really enjoyed yourselves. I hope we've covered twang in a really thorough manner, and hopefully you've got a much more clarity around your thinking when it comes to twang. And again, if you've never subscribed to the channel, if you are new here, please come and join our really encouraging community of singers from across the globe. A group I love hanging out with. You can see we've got all of these regular names that hang out with all of us. And oh, Singwise, Karen's just jumped in. I just saw the notification. Karen, we're finishing, I'm afraid. So you'll have to watch back over the event. And yeah, so this is a great community, and I look forward to hanging out with you guys every week. And I hope to do it again next week with you once we get into it all. And but until I do, I wish you all a great week of great singing, and we'll catch you all next week. Don't forget to keep an eye out for Thursday's video. I'm going to keep it a secret. You guys have a check out of the topic we're going to hit today. I look forward to seeing you in the next Voice Essentials video. I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.